Hello and welcome to the latest DVIC Q&A session. I'm the new Data Vault Innovators Community Coordinator, Paul. After working with politicians, actors, Olympians, Apple and social media influencers, I'm really looking forward to working with a community that doesn't need a mnemonic to tie its shoelaces. Joining me today is Julian Redmond, Richard Harris and James Hartwright from Certus Technologies, and we're going to be discussing data quality. But the point of these sessions is to make sure you get your questions answered. So make sure that if you're watching this afterwards, you leave questions in the comments section so we can tackle them for the next one round. And make sure one of those questions is not asking Richard what it's like to share a name with the Dumbledore actor. We'll go on and ask the panel on your behalf later on. Now let's dive in and meet today's panelists. Who wants to start us off and introduce themselves?
Yep. Hi, I'm James Hartwright. I work in Certus's strategy and innovation side. And I see data quality from both the technology end and the business end. So the impact of data quality in the business. And yeah, a lot of my job recently is helping organizations resolve that.
I'm Julian Redmond. I'm the CEO of Certus Insight and Iris. I've been in and around data warehousing and data vault for 12 to 15 years now. I get to talk to these guys regularly.
Richard Harris, Commercial Director for Certus Insight, been in and around data and particularly data quality for about 20 odd years.
Perfect. Thank you very much for joining me today. First question for you. What's the difference between data remediation and data quality management? Julian, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll have a go at the high level. So there's two aspects to it. Lots of people, when they talk about data quality, they're talking about how do I fix my data? And so it's really about what remediation efforts can they do. And there's lots of different things you can do. So you could do things, at the application end by having, predetermined fields that they select from, or, you can wash data against address data sets to clean up address data, or, a range of different things that can be done. But often the problem is actually finding out where all your data quality issues actually are, quantifying them and prioritizing which ones to fix. Really the big challenge is that at 100% data quality is a nirvana that no one can attain and maintain. So it's really about where do you apply the effort. And so that's where data quality management really sits, is really in determining what problems have a big enough impact that you should actually pay attention and do some of those remediation efforts.
Yeah, I totally agree. The identification of those critical attributes, critical business processes, critical elements. Otherwise, an organization will just walk in and boil the ocean and just try and do everything, and then everybody gets downbeat on why we're not improving. The other thing I think in the data quality management side is, we can talk about the technology we apply, but we've got to bring the people and the methods along. So it has to come embedded with the culture in why good data quality is a thing that we should strive for. And then the other is data quality management is continuous. I hit a data quality thing about 5 years ago. And what we saw was data wasn't getting input into a survey of high quality. It was non-mandatory, so people weren't filling it in. The resolution was, well, let's make them put the full date of birth in. And we went, okay, that problem's gone away now. It's mandatory. They've got to put the date of birth in. Came back 3 months later and looked, and everybody had a year of birth of, at that time, 2014. So everybody was born on the first item on the drop-down list. So your data quality management process needs to understand and continue to look at the new things that you've put on. Because if the process isn't embedding correctly, you might as well just not have done it.
And I think the only thing I would really add to there is that data quality management is driven really through trust, making sure that ultimately you want good quality data because you want to utilize it in your organization, whether it be communication to your client and making sure names and addresses and so forth are correct and maintained, but also all the other data that's being used. You've got to make sure that people trust it. Otherwise, they're not going to use the insights that are derived from it. So I think, before you think about remediation, it always tracks back to what data is being used, what level and degree of trust do I need to have, and do I have in that? it's kind of a chicken and the egg situation, right?
Makes a lot of sense. So then whose responsibility is data quality?
Everyone's.
Well, that was an easy answer. Fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
All agree.
Everyone's. In fact, the title of today of Q&A, I think, was posted, with the high turnover. And I think for me, that's one of the big risks that we face today. The average life expectancy for a chief marketing officer is 18 months.
Oh, God.
So it comes to, and the trend is similar for a lot of other executive roles. And so one of the problems that we face is that people are not necessarily encouraged to make those strategic decisions. They're looking for the more short-term answers. And that starts to permeate, across an organizational culture sometimes. If people are moving roles, then there's less incentive to look at maintaining and taking data quality seriously. I mean, I would love to have seen more focus being given on some of the recent breaches as who was in charge when those decisions were made to architect in those ways, because 9 times out of 10 it's not the people who are dealing with the problem today. So from my perspective, although it is a very glib answer to say everybody, it's quite true that we need to have an organizational view of why data is important and where and how we can take the steps to maintain data at its highest quality, that's possible within the context of your organizational capabilities.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I would just say, so you definitely need executive sponsorship for these sorts of things. You're not going to get a framework that monitors data quality over time. As James was saying before, it's an ongoing journey. It's not a single fix. So if you have exec sponsorship to put those systems so you can monitor it, but execs can't, they're not the ones at the coalface actually entering data into a system or working with that data and having the opportunity to correct errors as they come across them. So it's a cultural thing too, and it's analogous to the designing security into all layers of your process. You need to design quality into all layers of your operation here, and it's not a easy project to do because it actually touches every layer of the onion, and you need to have that mindset of at this point, how can we affect the architecture or the design or the processes to build data quality into it.
I'm doing a lot on this at the moment in trying to educate the business owners of business systems that data quality is not just about the data quality of what they believe they need to run their process. It's all of the downstream people or parallel connected systems that if you're on any journey towards data-driven maturity, data-driven insights, you have to, as you said, have it from the enterprise. You have to have those business owners respect and respond to things that may not necessarily be within their core system. And again, culture, journey, etc.
Perfect. Right, next question I've got for you. Do you think business people understand the role of data and the need for trust in the data?
I think, yes, that's growing and getting better. There's still a long way to go. There's been a lot of conversation over I think I heard the expression data as an asset, maybe a decade ago, and it still seems to be a long way off. But I think that if organizations can get to a point where they genuinely view data as the asset, then that will drive a lot more focus across the business. But generally, I think it's improving. I mean, more and more people understand how to use data, how to get insight out of the information that's available, and therefore the importance of trust in that information. So, I don't think I think we are a long way off from it being where we would want it to be. But I think it's getting better and better all the time, and we're seeing that resulting in a lot more focus on projects that we're involved with now, with clients wanting to get on top of their data quality and improve their data governance, which is being driven in a lot of cases bottom up by people in the workforce saying, we need access to better information, we need to be able to trust it, and that's now driving a lot of the new projects that we're seeing coming through.
Yeah, I saw a stat yesterday at Chief Data Officers Summit, which said 70% of executives, and this was like across 1,000 executives, understand that poor quality data is not letting them do the things that they want. We just have to get them to chuck us some money so we can set up data quality programs.
Now, I know you missed half the conversation, Jules, but was there anything you wanted to add?
Well, I was just thinking that one of the things that we've done in numerous organizations is actually help them to understand the impact of data quality by actually looking at the financial impact. So trying to do some financial modeling around what risk they're carrying, because everyone understands you're carrying $10,000 worth of risk or $1 million worth of risk. They find it hard now, or lots of non-technical people find it very hard to understand, well, we have X number of records with these sorts of problems in it, or data typing is misaligned, or a whole range of different things around master data and reference data. It all gets quite hard to conceptualize. But if you say the sum total of those issues is $1 million of risk, and we think by spending 20 grand on the problem, we can alleviate that risk, that is very much a conversation that a business user can engage in. And so that's the way I think to put it in front of managers. I think most frontline business users feel the pain because they've got to send an email to a customer and they've got 2 different email addresses and they don't know which one's correct. So they're feeling the pain of it. They understand it at that level. It's just really understanding what the major impact to the business is in the long term. That is a helpful conversation to have.
Yeah. I had a very strange occurrence today where I had a number of messages from a company that I used to work for, because whoever's taken over in my role has decided to start texting all of their customers. And every single text message that these people got were addressed to the wrong person. So the quality of the data that they're working with is obviously not the greatest. I'm kind of wondering what sort of impacts do you guys see with poor quality data?
I had a fantastic example just this week. An organization trying to do a better job of talking to the market and to their existing and new customers. They pulled together a marketing campaign where they were targeting, or they thought they were targeting, new customers with a cashback offer. So basically offering a $100 discount. Unfortunately, it went to existing customers who very quickly said, well, we would like that, please. Yeah. And you can imagine if you send, if it's a $100 discount and 100 people take it up, then that's a big impact. Now you extrapolate that out to potentially thousands and thousands of customers, and then the potential impact to an organization can be very significant. And so, that's a very real example of, a simple miscalculation in how they've classified information could have resulted in a very, very significant impact to the business.
Yeah, my most recent one was actually yesterday, where working on a client in the utilities arena, so looking after physical assets like water, electricity assets. We did the most basic of data quality rules, which is, have you got an install date on every one of your assets? Because if you haven't got an install date, you don't know what the life of that thing is. You can't depreciate the asset. You don't know when to maintain it. And so we did it as this is the rule we always run. It never really comes up with anything. And we found 10% of their assets had an install date from 2076 onwards.
Wow.
So here's a physical asset that's not even going to be looked at for 40 years. And just the potential impact of that. Now, obviously, there are humans going in and looking at it, but you can't run predictive analytics on it. You obviously can't help finance in working out a repair or replace things. So just that physical thing of saying some process that allowed a future date to be put in and the downstream impact of it.
That's a very good point James has made, because the example that I gave is, and James gave as well, these are kind of they're a simple thing that could have been avoided, and they're obvious errors. But a lot of organizations, they're starting to look very seriously at machine learning, predictive analytics. And if you don't have a solid foundation of good quality data, then the decisions that you're going to get, the patterns you're going to see out of machine learning are going to result in poor business decisions. And the speed with which automation can affect an organization is obviously far greater as well. So it's clear that there's still a lot of fundamentals not being addressed, even though people are starting to dream big about what they can do with artificial intelligence. So there seems to be that mismatch of people just assume, well, if I throw a machine at the data, magic is going to happen, and that's just not the case.
No, that's how you run Twitter. That's not how you do other things.
Exactly, or rather don't.
I've got one boring example, because they're two great operational examples, and then there's a really mundane, boring one. We're working with a finance customer, and they have their regulator they need to report to, and if they are doing the wrong things, there's fines attached. And the customer we're working with discovered that they've been reporting incorrectly because of data quality issues. And if that had continued, they would have had exposure of millions of dollars of fines. But by calling it out to the regulator and working through it and putting a process in, the regulator's there to make sure they're trying to do the right thing, not trying to make money off fines. So it was, but the fact that we were doing the data quality project found the sorts of things that potentially could have been millions of dollars of exposure, with not because they were poorly handling customer data or not maintaining assets, but just because the way they were organising their data and running their analytics that they needed to report to the regulator was not in line with the regulation. So it touches all aspects of business. There's no part of a business that doesn't operate on data, and data quality is important across all of those operations. So it's wide reaching.
There's a real strong thing for me in the Data Vault construct on that, is that for 20 odd years, my job primarily was hiding away all of the rubbish that had been going on in the operations and presenting a BI report that showed beauty. Well, Data Vault brings it through, show the facts, show what's actually been recorded up to the end user, so they can make an informed decision. So they can then go, yeah, this is rubbish, we need to get that sorted. But putting a data quality framework on top of that, you can actually start pinning the records and the values that you're going are in error. So putting that in context to an end user, if they want to filter it out, they can, but that you can filter it out based on the known attributes that are bad. Hiding it away should be something that we never do moving forwards, and something in Data Vault that allows you to demonstrate that to if you absolutely need to convert that, then it's a very strong thing in as people become more and more data savvy, we shouldn't treat them as stupid.
Makes a lot of sense. Then how closely coupled then is data quality to data governance? And do you think there should be data quality in places for like a council in charge of this kind of thing within a company, or how does that all connect for you guys?
Yeah, there's an interesting catch-22 there. If you build your data quality reporting and there's nobody to take them on, you're stuffed. If you've built this data governance council that's there to look after all the data, but there's nothing in terms of progress or weird things, so you have to sort of do them in parallel. That bit we talked about before in terms of bringing a culture of data and data quality and classification of data, like you need to make sure that personal and sensitive data is hived away, not exposed, all of that. So the data governance council, yes, I prefer the word forum, a group of like-minded people coming together and helping drive the business. Get that set up, get the data quality process in there. If you find something where there's some real bad data quality in the organization, allow that forum to have funding to help improve that. It's not just that area's problem. It's you've got to help aid the thing. By doing that, you just generally immediately start surfacing that the organization respects good value, good quality data, and allowing people to put their hands up when they see something that's a bit weird. Feed that into the forum, and the forum respecting it and applying a risk profile and an order to it. But yeah, it's another of those things. If you can bring the organization together through that forum, then the tendrils just start going everywhere.
There's also inherent in that as well, understanding the different types of data quality and how they relate back to governance, because data quality could be accuracy. If we just look at email addresses, for example, does it have a first name, an @ and a domain that's viable? But then there's completeness. How often are we capturing that email? Because if you're, again, in a marketing-led organization, then an email is a highly valuable communication point. It's also a highly valuable business key in Data Vault for the linking of data together. And then, of course, you've got recency. How old is this email? Are we getting bounce backs, et cetera, et cetera? So you've got to start asking those kinds of questions about what you actually mean by data quality, and then which ones of those would relate back to your data governance strategy. Because again, that part of that quality, if you've got a piece of data that's being used ubiquitously across the organization, it's highly valuable, then of course that's going to be top priority in terms of governance and who has access to it. If it's PII, does everybody need access to it as well? So they do go hand in hand, but I think it starts with knowing what do we actually mean by data quality for the information we're managing.
Anything you want to add in there, Jules?
Well, the only thing I'd mention, I think it was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm pretty sure it was Forrester that put out a report saying essentially the data stewards, which kind of fit under your governance structure, needed tool sets. You can't be expected to manage rules and policies and definitions for KPIs and whatever else. And also the related quality elements without tool sets. So a data quality framework so that you can manage data quality is one of the critical tools for a data steward to actually use if you want your data stewards to be effective in your business. So they're very closely tied together for sure.
I see what you mean though, James. It does sound very formal with stewards and councils and all the rest of it. Are there robes? Do we need to be worried?
Yeah, there's definitely so data stewards are definitely a guild of people. Is like how we do it, and as Jill said, if you can provide them with appropriate tools whereby they can describe a data quality rule in English terms, and that they can then get deployed, and then you can lead that through, and when a data steward's got 300 errors that have been generated, to have those in English terms of you didn't put an install date on this new asset, they can drive that through. I try wherever possible to remove that formality. And the other part in there that data quality is very strongly linked to. So data governance councils were historically very protect. Like we need to protect the data and keep it and secure it. I go just as much, and this is off a lady called Laura Madsen, who go and read her book on disrupting data governance. Promoting the use of data, surfacing that thing of this is good quality data. We are doing QA across this bit of data to the end of the earth. So have trust in this data and use it and share it and extend it. So those two things of protect and promote in that forum, I try and do that, brings it more human and less political.
Yes. Yeah, I think we've all had enough of politics for 1 year. Definitely. So what is data observability and where does that all fit in?
Yeah. Sorry, this is one of my pet things so I work a lot with data scientists, machine learning people, and it's this bit of data never stays the same. Human-driven processes never stay the same. So not just looking at, hey, has the data got when we get I can use gender, MF, male, female, unknown, binary. So you can say, oh yeah, the data's coming through, it's quality, it's got one of these, or it's empty. That's beautiful. But what happens if next week 80% of the records come and they go M? Well, you're going, well, that's not the data looks right, but the overall breadth, the overall spread, my sort of trust in that did it right has dropped. So data observability is not just profiling the things in themselves. It's looking at what's come in today, what's come in yesterday. Is this the same? Is this the right amount of data for a Thursday in November? Yeah, compared to last year, it's doubled. Well, what's going on there? And having something in that data quality side to look at the statistical spread of that data is becoming way more important. And to Richard's earlier point, as we're building automated systems from IoT sensors and things, this automated thing is going to make its decisions and change through feedback learning, change what it's doing. And so we need to have that same level of data quality observation before that thing makes an incorrect decision. So getting in there as quickly as possible and being proactively reactive to data change is something I've been waving the flag for the past 6 years. And then yes, this data observability of profiling the data, understanding the data, and then putting processes on top, which can in themselves be AI processes to monitor that data and alert us as early as possible.
So that was actually going to be my next question. Is that a much more humanized sort of interaction that you're thinking of, or something that's much more digitized?
It's very much in the sort of the human augmentation decision support, where the robot puts up its virtual hand and says, this looks weird. Based on what you told me is good, this looks weird. Can you tell me, do an action, but then tell me whether I was a good bot.
Yeah.
If I was a good bot and I raised something that was weird, then I will learn from that. And if you tell me, don't worry about it, I'll also learn about that and not to come and pester you.
Makes a lot of sense. And you don't have to feed bots. We'll give them money. It's great.
And they're on 24/7. They don't get tired.
Absolutely. Did anybody else want to add anything to that?
James is the expert.
Yeah, no,
leave it at that.
Angels fear to tread and all that.
Yeah.
All right. And can data quality framework be applied to process data and to help improve business process quality?
Well, yes is the answer. If we want to just answer the question and move on. Yeah.
Done.
I mean, to me, process data is just another data set. And so, as James was saying, we can look at what's expected out of the process. So from that observability angle, or we can look at what metrics are we tracking. So we treat it as another data set. And the idea is that obviously is if your information around any business process is correct, then you have a better opportunity to manage that process well, or find opportunities to improve that process. And you can't improve a process if you don't understand it. So I mean, it's there's lots to be done in that space. I think, especially in the utilities and heavy industries sort of sector. There is a lot more information coming out of processes, from manufacturing and other things. So applying data quality rules that we've traditionally applied to finance and customer data sets and those sorts of things there's a big opportunity there.
And again, with the advent of things like blockchain, again, particularly in global transactions, dramatically increasing the speed with which decisions are made and processes can be improved. It will again comes back down to what data are you tracking, what data are you using, and what is being captured. So again, it's the business drivers for getting on top of data quality are getting bigger and bigger as the implications for drastic errors occurring get bigger and bigger.
Okay.
Yeah, and I feel also there's a really nice business piece here. Yes, in that utility space, but in the customer-centric side, if you've got an onboarding process that should, may take 3 days to do, but step 1, step 2, step 3, and you haven't seen step 2 occur after 5 days, then you should be able to surface an anomaly and get somebody to look at it. Again, the little bot in the background just going, this is normal, this is abnormal, and alerting back. That as I say, heavily customer centric. That what I hate is being kept in the dark. Why is it taking 5 days? Why is it taking 10 days? If the organization came back and went, hey, look, really sorry, this isn't our usual thing, blah, 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 went wrong, we're onto it, we know we're your respected customer, I might actually stay a bit longer after my discount is finished than if you just kept me in the dark and I'm now upset.
Yeah, I could certainly see that being an issue as well in other applications like health, for example, health and medicine. Very important to make sure you've got those processes in place and you're tracking people's information and their steps through to be able to keep track of where they should be and flagging anything that doesn't work or seems anomalous to it.
Yeah, and in Data Vault land, where we're truly pulling full enterprise data together, where this onboarding journey can move from system 1 to system 2 to system 3 and 4, we're in a beautiful position to be able to monitor and measure that through vaults and business keys and hubs and links.
Perfect. All right, next question for you. What are the key elements to good quality data management?
That's a good question.
I'd say this should be an easy one. This is a short question.
Well, I think we're all pausing because there are so many ways of slicing and dicing that question. It's about where do you start? I think from my perspective, it is about the acknowledgement of where information is being used in the organization, what the potential implications are, and then looking at your decision points from there. That's kind of where I would start with the answer.
I think like it's also really about how you set it up. You need to enable your people. So you need to train your people, you need to enable them, you need to give them the tools that they can use to actually be effective, because there's nothing more frustrating than being told you're a data steward or you're a data quality owner and here's Excel,
and the time, because line managers need to give their people time to do these remediation and to make sure they're reviewing their own their little bit of the world, and sometimes that can just fall by the wayside when we've got this report to deliver or we've got this task to complete. We need to give people that time to do the learning and to get up to speed, and then to take care of their part of the world.
Yeah, and then I think share the load. Like make everyone a part-time steward rather than make it all Sandra's problem, because that people are going to leave that job. People are not going to want to be the butt of every problem. It's because someone didn't fix the data quality. Who's that person? Let's lynch them. That's not going to be effective for a business. So if you can set the right policies and have the right tools, and then share the problem to those that can actually be effective, that's going to be a far better data quality management process than a big stick, and going. You've been hired to fix our data quality problem, so make sure that's done by next week. That's never going to work. So
the bit I tend to find is I'll walk in and I'll say you need to put data quality on your critical data elements first, and then people go, well, what are those? How do I find those? So that my usual response is, okay, do you have any KPIs? Do you have any enterprise or organizational KPIs? Well, let's work through what the important attributes are in doing those. They may just be raw attributes, or, hey, I've got this set of data connected and there are no orphans or widows in there. So go and hit on those KPIs and get those improved. And that generally, if you're doing enterprise ones, will filter through the organization. And then the next piece in that progress is, all right, let's now go and look at divisions. And divisions will have their own KPIs. And every time you build a new report, let's actually think of the attributes that you're doing there. So you're not doing this, I think earlier, as to it's not a boil the ocean thing. It is, we are going to work through these. And if we get this into the process where the data ops team is bringing in new data or building a new data mart or putting in a new machine learning model, we go back in and go, right, what are the important attributes that we haven't already got data quality on? What are the data quality rules? Put them on. And then, as Jules and Richard said, get that baked back into the organization so that we see continuous improvement. And look, the last thing in there is just celebrate the successes. If you've just gone in and you've found it and fixed it, go, we were rubbish. now we're better, and we're getting better and better and better. And look at the money we saved, or the failure mode. Look at the money that we didn't have to spend in recovering through what we've just done. The little thing you have on churches where we got the fund. Start throwing some of those up into there in around the organisation.
It's a really cool idea. So what options are there for data quality remediation?
Fix it at source. Fix it at source. Fix it at source.
Okay.
Yeah. So and to that earlier piece. So yeah, if you've got a data capture process and you can see there's low quality data coming in there, change that process. That might be setting something to a drop-down list rather than free text. It might be make it mandatory, but it might also be, well, let's look at a different way that we could capture this data. That thing on install date. Well, you knew I was putting a brand new asset in. The system was going, you were out doing this job, putting the new asset in. Why not just put that as the date, as default? I don't need to do that anymore. So definitively look at in terms of, can we use systems and processes to generate higher quality data rather than have a human.
There's also an element of the KPIs that you're putting in place. If you just look at a call center, for example, quite often they're incentivized to get on and off a call as quickly as possible, get through as many calls as possible. All you're encouraging there is for people to look for ways of not entering data where they don't need to, or taking those logical shortcuts. So giving people that time and and encouraging them and educating them as to why data quality is important, and and measuring the right things, as Julian said before, is equally as important. So we've got so many examples over the years where you apply a KPI to someone and they end up doing something you'd had no idea that was going to be the result. I know of a bank that just said, we want to see less customer complaints recorded. So guess what? They stopped recording complaints.
They just make so much sense.
Exactly right. They achieved their objective. They met the requirements. The KPIs looked fantastic, but it wasn't the intention of that edict. So I think there is definitely that idea of, if we're going to take data quality seriously, then we have to enable our staff to do that by allowing them the time as well as the ability to do it.
And manage your reference data. Like, it's the source of so many data quality problems. So just get a process that works in for managing reference data. We'll leave it there.
All right, so my next question is probably a little bit trickier, actually, just because it's a government question, and obviously every government in the world is a little different with their priorities and how they do things. But generally speaking, do you think that governments are doing a decent job with regulating data quality? I'm guessing some are doing better than others, or are they all just equally terrible?
You live in New Zealand, Paul, and the rest of us are in Australia, so that makes it a little tricky. But I would say generally, governments are grappling with data quality management the same as everyone else. And it feels a little bit like regulating Bitcoin or something else, right? Stuff's moving on so quickly. The government hasn't caught up with regulations really all that well yet around, obviously there's been a lot of movement on data privacy, in Europe and now here as well, so there's definitely aspects to that, and our financial regulators in New Zealand and Australia both have metrics, around that sort of stuff, around accuracy as well. But as a rule, there's not a lot of regulations that force businesses to manage data well yet. Do you think it's something that's on the cards, or something that should be in place? Just like a bare minimum of... I mean, it's definitely coming. You look at what happened with, the security breaches in Australia just recently, Optus and others, Medibank and what have you. That's obviously not necessarily a data quality issue, but it is a data management issue.
Yeah.
And holding accurate information, using information in the right way, protecting information. It's all kind of, different sides of the same coin, essentially. And so I think that those regulations are definitely going to be coming.
When it comes to personal information, PII, I mean, you look at GDPR is now pretty much the default standard for almost any enterprise that you come across. And like our own Privacy Act here in Australia, it's principles based. So governments will never be able to stipulate how you should do something. They will set the expectation of you should be able to change your information. You should be able to understand how your information is being used by an organisation. The consumer data right that is now coming through out of banking and into telco and other industries all goes in that direction. And I think governments generally are doing the best that they can in enacting those principle-based laws, and then allowing case law to inform some of the devil in the detail. I think generally it's the golden rule: don't do something with data that you wouldn't want done to your own data. And I think most organisations we see out there, it's not through a lack of aspiration. I don't think we see anyone that's being deliberately obtuse about this. There are business realities, there's other priorities. It's about making sure that people understand just how important the potential business impact is from poor data quality, and prioritising it appropriately in that way.
Yeah, I've been banging on the door of government utilities for the last 6 or 7 years, and they're going, yeah, the last 2 years they've been banging on my door, because they've been saying, yeah, I understand that data quality and data governance are actually really important to good financial management. And the more government organisations that think in that way of spending my citizen taxes better, I'm very up for. And I think there's a little bit there in, we've definitely got a couple of ministers over here in Australia who have come up through as digital natives. They understand that the value of good data, and basically asking all of the government bodies, civil servants, to go, well, what's the backing? Show me the lineage of its data. Show me why I should trust it to make an important decision. And I think, the more that happens, the more we're going to get this. Yes, government will be well up there.
How much of that sort of change in the government attitude has been spurred by events out of, say, the United States, where there were questions around the integrity of the democratic process?
I don't think we're very Trumpian.
Yeah, I'd like to think that's
everywhere.
Yeah. I'd like to think that's just a unique thing out of US political strategigists.
Okay.
But there are big events that trigger.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I was thinking with not a specific somebody, not Russia is attacking you guys with bots specifically, but as a wake up call, that's the kind of thing that makes people go, oh shit, what data is out there about me? Where is it kept? What information can be used?
Even COVID just brought everyone was looking at reports every day.
Yeah.
Following trending graphs, and brought analytics to the forefront for lots of people who don't exist in the world of looking at data. So it was funny how many of my friends and my social group were going, oh, is that what you do? That sort of
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, So I think there's definitely, the world runs on data now.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's no joke when people say it's the next oil or all of that. It's trying to draw analogies, but every business is an information business now. And so, you're really talking about improving the quality of the fuel that your business is operating on. So.
That actually brings me really nicely to my last question. How can data teams build the business case for remediation with exec level managers?
Yeah, I've got one good example I want to talk about with this one. So we had an organisation that shipped pallets of stuff around the country, and they got their entire business case for getting a data quality framework in place so they could just identify and monitor and manage data quality. They got the business case in on one rule, and that rule was the size of the carton per pallet. Because if that was wrong, then the number of products per pallet were wrong, and then obviously cost profit. Everything is driven on how much stuff they can put on a pallet and ship. And so that one rule, that one data quality rule, and improving the accuracy of that justified this spend on putting in a framework that they could then apply data quality rules across a whole range of other things. They had mobile outlets, and when we looked at the GPS locations of some of their mobile outlets, they were sitting in the ocean. Clearly they weren't in the ocean, but
you would hope, yep.
So lots of other benefits, but it's really about finding that that there's usually one big impact rule. Like data quality management, quite often, not always, but quite often, will be a small number of rules that have a very large impact on the business, and it's that 80-20 rule. And so finding a high impact thing will get you on the path, and then you're already enabling people. You're getting a process in, you're getting some technology in maybe, and then you can apply that process to other data sets and other rules.
I think to add on to that, wherever you can, link it back to the executive or board bonuses. If you're going to have a major breach, the board's going to suffer. If the share price is going to fall, then the executive's going to suffer. So it sounds like I'm being funny, but ultimately that's kind of where decisions are being made. If it's going to affect someone personally, if they're in their back pocket or their reputation, brand, etc., if you can link it back to those organizational stated goals that this is what we're bonusing our executives on, then that's how you're going to get attention, particularly for those big strategic plays that you want to make that require board level sign off. Then you've got to make it relevant to the board. Because again, getting it down to, this rule could mean this, and they're not listening to that. They read bullet points in a board report. So wherever possible, you want to make it very personal to the people who are running the organisations.
Anything you want to add, James?
Again, that same report I saw around 70% of executives. So given an average company of around 250 employees, there's about $7.5 million lost through poor data quality. So you can throw that stat out there, but then we'll come back to the bit that Jules said earlier. When you're setting up a data quality rule, what is the cost to fix this that we could avoid if we'd have captured it, fixed it at source? The second one, which actually becomes really more important, and we talked about that on the install date, is what is the downstream negative impact of not having this data correct? And that usually is like 5 times that cost. But you add those two costs together and you sum them up in the number of errors we're creating per day, and you suddenly get here is your priority action list. Go and fix this one, because it will save you $1 million per annum on that first one. The next one, it's only $500,000 it will save you per annum. Yeah. So just work through that, and that very quickly, when you put numbers in front of people, and yes, Richard associated to their KPIs, they will sit up and watch.
Makes a lot of sense. All right, one last personal question. Do I really need to worry about Twitter? Should I be freaking out that Elon is sitting there at the moment pulling all the cables out? Am I going to lose my account anytime soon?
No, all you've got to remember, there's a very small percentage of the population that actually are on Twitter, and even a smaller percentage that participate. So no, just enjoy the fire while it burns.
Thank God for that. It's always fun to watch a trash fire from a distance. I want to thank our experts, James, Jules, and Richard, for joining us today. I found it incredibly informative, and I hope you have as well. Make sure you head along to the Data Vault Innovators community page or download the app. If you've got any follow-up questions, please leave them in the comments down below, and we'll make sure this session is also available shortly in video and podcast form, as well as a few snippets that we'll link to in the community. Thank you, and good afternoon.